Good morning, everybody. Lee Brower here, and welcome to this week's edition of Meaningful Monday. I am grateful to be here with you, and I am glad to be here with you. You know, I'm often asked, how come you call it Meaningful Mondays? Why don't you call it Happy Mondays? Well, you think about the word meaningfulness. Is there a relationship between meaningfulness and happiness? Yes or no? If so, I think there is, don't you? If you had to choose, though, which one drives which? Does meaningfulness drive happiness, or does happiness drive meaningfulness? You know, there's 4 pillars of meaningfulness. The first one is belonging. You know, clear back in the 1900s, I remember reading a book by Nesbitt called Megatrends. And back then it said that in the 21st century, the driving factor that's going to motivate people more than anything else, more than money, is a sense of belonging. And a sense of belonging is where you are valued for who you are intrinsically, and also how you value others. Some groups, you know, they offer a cheap form of belonging. In other words, they don't value you for who you are, they value you for what you believe or what you hate. True belonging is really centered in what? True belonging is centered in love. When you lead with love, you create a bond that lifts each other. Now, what is it when we walk by somebody? Have you ever walked by someone without acknowledging them? Have you ever been checking your cell phone while you're talking to someone or they're trying to talk to you? Be careful, because in essence you're devaluing that sense of belonging. You're devaluing love. All right, so the first one is belonging. Second one is purpose. Purpose really is less about what you get than what you give. It's that big why. It's not what you do. It's not how you do it. It's why you do it. It's having that vision that's so big that it's out there, that it supports you in where you're going. You know, I'm reminded of a story I believe I've shared with you in the past about a friend of mine, a colleague that loved to do outdoor hiking, and he was hiking up in Colorado, up around 11 or 12,000 feet, and he was trudging along all out of breath, and he hears somebody coming from behind. And what do you do when somebody's coming from behind? You speed it up. And so he speeds it up, but pretty soon this guy was alongside of him, and he looked over at him, and he was in his 70s, and he says, I can't let that happen. So he sped it up a little further, but this guy that was 70 seemed to be distancing himself. So he reached out and touched him. And he said, what drives you? And the man turned around and looked with a little coy little grin on his face, and he said, my vision of the future. It sustains my present agony. And off he went. Now, I've never forgotten that story. The power of your future is your purpose. The third thing is transcendence. Transcendence really is a spiritual awakening. An awakening to the fact that everything that you have is not yours. That there is something bigger out there. That there is something more spiritual out there that gives us a reason to be living. And the fourth one is storytelling. Now, what do I mean by storytelling? I mean by interpretation. The story you tell about yourself. I mean, who owns your past? Don't we own our own past? Therefore, we have the opportunity to create our own story. Now, that doesn't mean to lie. We're talking about create our own story by what are we learning from these things. I can edit, interpret. You can edit and interpret and adjust your story to provide more meaningfulness to your life. And to do that oftentimes meaning embracing painful memories rather than letting those hold us back. But by embracing painful memories, getting wisdom from that, we can get new insights and wisdom. It can provide us with the good or the strength to sustain us. See, that's the power of meaning. Happiness comes and goes. But when life is really good or life is really bad, having meaning gives you something to hold on to. Thank you for letting me share this Meaningful Monday with you. I hope it's been meaningful for you. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.